Well, okay. This is new. I don't know if anyone's officially here. Oh, I think I see Josh. Hello. I'm live streaming. Bet you never expected it. I'm just trying stuff out. I want to see how I can do. Right now, I am having trouble figuring out how to change titles and things, because apparently these titles are not very accurate to what I intend to be doing. So that'll be a fun thing to figure out. I've never once had to deal with that. Okay, yeah, I can change this to be like, hey, talking about deltarune theories. That'll work. That'll be pretty cool. wonder if I could also change the thumbnail. I can! That'll be amazing. Alright, hold on. I'm going to switch to... Hey, check that out. Okay. And that's me. And it should be working. And then I can just like take this image that I made and turn it into a thumbnail. Isn't that brilliant? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get this. This is all very new. All right, and then... Yeah, I should have probably figured this out before I started, now that I think about it. Okay. Easy, though. Easy fix. Completely reestablish myself as a premium streamer experience. Have fun in your car that you stole, Josh. I appreciate you stopping by. Okay, so I'm going to be operating under the assumption that I'm going to have no viewers, and so I'm going to be talking to myself. Benefits of that, I can turn everything I'm talking about into videos later, which is pretty cool. So, what I'm going to be doing is just doodling away. I need to find a good layout for my computer real quick. It's going to be a lot of fun tinkering around with this stuff as I go. That should do for now. Okay. That'll be fine for now. Okay. And so I think this should be looking good. I'm just going to be drawing as I talk to illustrate my points. It'll be really cool and neat. Okay. So, first step on my own personal agenda, I'm just going to jump right into it because there's simply just going to be no one to stop me. And if you're in the chat, feel free to hop in and I can talk to you. I'm just going to go ahead and start recording as I talk about my deltarune stuff. Because, hey, spoilies. That's how you spell. Okay, first step. I am going to be talking about deltarune in a very unique way, and that's that I'm going to be viewing it from a very outward, overheaded kind of way. I'm not going to be talking much about the lore and what's supported there, although that's important, and I probably will bring it up a lot to support my arguments. But mostly I'm just going to be talking about what I think will work good story structure-wise. And so I think that's a really fun way to look at theorizing, because nobody does that, because it's kind of stupid. You really don't really get the full themes of a story until the story's done. But I wanted to see what I could do to try to pinpoint where the story of deltarune is going before it actually shows what's happening. And that's going to be a very interesting kind of experience. So deltarune right now, as it stands to me, is a story about you've got these three figures, and that's the fun gang: Susie, Delty, and Relzen. And they're all pretty cool guys. I'm just going to draw my little figures of them. There we go. Look, they look great. And Ralsei. Yeah, look at him. What a cute guy. These are silly drawings. Okay. All right. And you know what? Just for good measure, I'm going to draw in favorite little guy, Gaster. That's what he looks like, right? Okay. So, my thoughts right now, and I really wish I had prepared for this before just jumping into it, but I wanted to get the jitters out. Wanted to just start and not have to worry about, oh, what am I going to do when I start? Okay. So what I'm going to be doing is talking about, hey, what is the point of this story of Deltarune? What does it mean to Toby Fox, Tobolt Foxhound, to make this story about Deltarune? Why is this important? What themes is he trying to get across? Well, there's a lot of main themes. The first main theme that he's going into is storytelling. And this can be in the form of games. This can be in the form of writing. Mostly just those two things, because those are the things we actually see. We have Garrison talking about how he's a writer, and we have lots of just games within games imagery, especially in Chapter 3 of Deltarune. And so this is all about storytelling and how to convey a story, especially through gaming. And it's, as you would expect, the narrative of Deltarune gets kind of meta in order to explain these points. That's just how it decides to operate. Meta is kind of just like a very tricky to get right nowadays because everyone tries to use it. But Toby Fox so far has handled it pretty decently, I would say. You know, I think I could do better. But the main idea that sprouted from chapters 1 and 2, when they were the hot stuff, is that Deltarune was, the Dark World in particular, was a place of imagination. It was a place of escapism. It was a place where Chris, along with Azriel, who I'll just put there. Hey, look at him. Chris and Azriel could jump into the Dark World, and they could say, hey, let's just enjoy ourselves. Let's create something. Let's create a story for ourselves where we feel empowered and have fun and all that good stuff. Azriel disappears. Don't know why. Might be dead, according to some theorists, but we don't exactly know why Azriel's gone, but clearly Azriel has left a gaping hole in the function of Chris's daily life, especially now with the divorce of Chris's parents. So now Chris has said, hey, I'm taking Susie now, or Susie's getting dragged into this at the very least, into the Dark World to meet Rousey. And so now we have this connection of Chris and Susie being heroes and Rousey being a prince from the dark or a darkener, whatever. The point is, this is the Deltarune. It's the three main factions. And, of course, the upward triangles are symbolizing the Lighteners, and the downward triangles symbolizing the Darkener in the world beneath them. And that matches Rousey, and the upper ones matching Chris and Susie. I started wondering and kind of extrapolating that this is not the only way to apply these figures, especially because we've got Chapter 3 with their game within a game. And this one is very interesting to me because it kind of asks you to say, hey, let's look at layers. Let's look at layers of media and layers of understanding what's happening in the story. You've got Chris playing a game in Chapter 3. And so now you are playing a game about playing a game. And this is weird. This is a lot to take in, especially because you've got your teensy little Chris from your game within a game suddenly popping out of it in the kind of secret, half weird route. And this is concerning because it's like saying no matter how deep you go into these abstracted worlds, guess what? It's all one video game. Like, this guy and this guy all exist within the same plane. And so it's trying to basically just break down this barrier of a screen. It is breaking that down. This doesn't matter. Get rid of it. It doesn't matter. And this little guy and this guy are part of the same reality. What can you extrapolate from that? I think it's kind of meant to make you wonder, what's the difference then between this big ol' monitor and my big ol' monitor that I bought at Best Buy for $300 because I don't know how to budget? And that's the question it makes you want to ask. Clearly there is a difference because both of these are within one video game, and this is the border of reality. Mine is. But it makes you try to just like question that for a second, which is kind of exactly what Undertale does. And it's not like beating you over the head with it. It's not saying, hey, Chris isn't turning to the camera and saying, hey, I know I'm in a video game. Like, that's not what's happening. But they are trying to just use in-game clues to try to hint to you that there's not a 100% clear distinction between what's real and what's not. Or at the very least, it's not saying like, hey, you can just quit being invested in this game and you can say, hey, this is just a video game. It doesn't affect me. But the game accounts for that and you have to be aware of it. So the interesting thing is then, if Deltarune is kind of about this, I'm going to go back to it. If Deltarune is about these two characters, telling a story and connecting through a dark world, because that's basically what Chris and Susie are doing. They are connecting. There we go. That's a connection. Via a dark world. Like, there's that connection between them. They are now friends because Chris has shared with them seemingly a creation of their own with Susie in order to connect with her. That seems to be what the kind of theming of it is. And so then you have to wonder, is there an upper level to this? Is there an even higher level to this? Because that's what I started wondering when I saw these screens within screens within screens, these games within games within games. What if we say, hey, I'm seeing this game within my game, and now I'm seeing this Deltarune within perhaps a higher Deltarune? It's a weird way of putting it, but this is really kind of crackpot theories, and it's interesting that I'm starting with this, but whatever. So what if there is a higher Deltarune? So now we've got this one, which is Chris, Susie, Rouse. And what if there's a higher one now? One that has maybe, Deltarune as the dark world, as the creation that connects two people. And so we have Rouse, who represents the dark world. And I'll just put / dark world. Rouse in the dark world in this one. And that's the creation. That's the story that's being told to connect these 2 points. And now we have Deltarune is the creation that's connecting 2 points. Chris is presumably the creator of the dark world. And who's the creator of this? Well, I don't want to just say it's Toby Fox. Because I don't know, it seems to be not exactly what he's trying to do. He's always being very subtle with his metaphors or with his meta text. For now, I'm going to call it Gaster because that's kind of what's His Twitter account has just been kind of role-playing as Gaster. Gaster's the one connecting with you at the very beginning of Chapter 1 to create the Goner Maker, to say, hey, check out this survey, check out this game, connect to it, play it, and let's see how it goes. So Gaster is kind of taking the role there. And then the last one is you. So now there's forming a connection because of this creation, a connection between the creator and the player over a created world. And so I just think that's an interesting parallel that we could draw from this, because Gaster is saying at the very end of Chapter 4, my deltarune. We don't exactly know what that is about, but I think it's very possible that deltarune could mean a lot of different things. It can mean the legend. It can mean the prophecy. It can mean the form of the actual symbol itself. This one right here. But it can also mean this connection between these 3 points and what that creates. Now, this is where I'm kind of just going full into just like wondering and speculating. Oh, Naps the Book 22. I'm just thinking in the chat now. Yes, it is quiet here. I'm talking essentially to myself so I can create videos, so I can not feel insecure about the fact that no one's here to listen. Don't worry about it. But what I'm trying to now do is wonder, we've got the 3 triangle pieces. They symbolize a creator, Chris, a player, Susie, and the creation slash, the story through which it's told, the dark world. And it could also represent the creator of the actual game, Deltarune, that we are playing right now on Steam or Switch 2, ourselves, and Deltarune. So this made me now wonder, if that is the case, I think it is very possible to apply it this way. What is the angel in that case, just from like a storytelling standpoint? It doesn't matter what character it is right now. I'm just trying to figure out what the angel is according to this kind of metric I set up for myself between creator, player, and world. And right now, I'm not exactly sure what it is, and so I'm kind of just going to be speculating on that for a while. So, the angel, I have strongly been wondering for a while, is the angel an actual character or more of a concept? This isn't out of left field exactly, because we've got that creepy little kid from Undertale, who looks something like this. Yeah. There we go. Chara was such a weird character, right? Chara, Kara, whatever you want to call it, is a weird character because they were a character within the world, but when they describe themselves, they say, every time you leveled up, every time you attacked, every time you felt good from progressing these stats, that was me. It's such a weird description, and it's kind of good that it comes at the very end of the game because it's just so out there. It's like, what do you even make of that? How do you apply that to the narrative that you've consumed and understand it holistically? I really don't know how you can understand what Chara is without just some serious legwork on the reader's part of like, what is this meant to represent? And right now I'm just thinking Chara is a concept. It's the concept of Chara is basically baked into the UI of the game, this connection, this user experience of, I enjoy getting these feelings from these stats, from becoming stronger, from all this stuff. I'm wondering if the angel is a very similar thing, where the angel represents something about this connection between a creator, their creation, and the person who partakes in the creation. I'm just going to call it the player, just because it could be a reader, it could be a viewer, it could be a whatever. But player is most applicable because it's a video game. Oh, man. I need to try my best not to feel like I'm rambling. Well, that's all I'm doing, but I need to try to have structure to what I'm saying. So bear with me. Okay. So what is the final step then? If we've got this creator, player, and creation dynamic, what is this thing floating above it? I have no clue. If I would to originally guess, I would say the angel is the player. Like, a lot of people right now are thinking that the heart, the player, is the angel. Like, that's what's being obscured from us at the very end of chapter 4. I need to make sure that my spoilies tag is still up here, because I don't want anyone to pop in and be like, hey, I didn't get to chapter 4. I don't know what's going on. Let's just put that on a new layer. There we go. Nice. Now nobody can complain. Never. Okay. Yeah, so the player as the angel does make a lot of sense, right? I mean, it is like this outside force that's coming in and having a huge effect on the entire landscape of reality as these in-game characters understand it. And so, of course, it would be a huge factor in the prophecy. And so it's very natural for players to assume that. And there's lots of little bits and details that you can kind of glean from it to support your arguments, but there's also kind of lots of pieces against it, especially because the in-game character Noelle very well could be just straight up the angel, because there's so much imagery associated with her for being an angel. So I'm not exactly sure what this layer 1 of narrative, this ground zero of narrative, is meant to have its angel be. So that's why I'm trying to figure that out. So again, getting back to it, the angel, what if we went more conceptual with it? We've already got the player. Well, this is creator. Creator. Sorry, I'm always slowing down to get my points across, but creator, player, creation. Well, it could be a red herring that Noelle's the angel. That's definitely a possibility. It seems like it's so overt, right? And at the same time, the heart is given a lot of angel imagery because in chapter 4, like a literal angel thing pops on them, and the player's always just like interacting with this angel imagery. It's hard to tell. Like it's deliberately obtuse and to keep the mystery going, which is fair. And I think both of them are going to be effectively an angel in some way, shape, or form. It's possible the angel is never going to be fully described within the text of the game. But thinking again conceptually, we've got our creator, we've got our player, we've got our creation. What's left in this dynamic? When I'm playing a video game and Tony Fox is the one who's created it and sharing it with me, who else is in there, you know? Who else is in this dynamic to be like, hey, I'm part of this too? And I can't think of any particular person. And so that leaves me with one additional thing, and it's actually something I'm going to pull up a YouTube video for, which I wish I had pulled up ahead of time, but you know me, you don't know me. Nobody knows me, especially nobody online. Okay, but I am unprepared. So, Toby Fox speech Japanese is what I'm going to be searching and hoping to find. Okay. Let's see if that works. Does that work? I think it does. Okay, cool. Maybe we might end up setting Noelle down the path of fulfilling her role as the angel. Yeah, it could be any like combination of the player and Noelle being the angel, and it's probably going to be this indistinct combination of the two, or maybe even more factors. It could be Azrael too. There's lots of talk about that. Azrael is being this big winged boss that shows up at the very end of Undertale, and then probably Deltarune too, assuming he's not dead. I don't know. It could really be anything. Okay, turning off music, and let's watch Toby Fox. Oh no, this is just him talking in perfect English. Okay. Okay, it's cute dog. Toby Fox, blah blah blah. Okay. Times like these are when people need laughter, they need smiles, they need happiness. I need to adjust this. When the skies get dark, they need something. Just a little something to shine on them and light their path. I'm not going to say that games can save the world or anything like that, but you can save someone's day. This is very just like sentimental and straightforward, it's just a nice message. And when times are tough, just one more day of smiles can make a huge difference. But what's so special about indie games? That is heart. When people make games, they put their hearts into the game. The creator's individuality, the creator's dream. The memory that the creator couldn't forget, the nightmare that the creator wanted to forget. The creator's love, that is the creator's heart. Okay? I'm just going to wait till it gets to the point where I really want to talk about it. Okay, increases the chance that the player's heart will match the creator's. When the player's whose heart matches the creator's, something strange happens. The game screen flashes like a cursed mirror. The player's heart begins to shine. That player will be changed forever. That player will be changed forever. This is a very interesting speech because it's exactly what I think about just being an artist and creating and telling a story. This is what makes me want to tell stories, is this phenomenon. It's not something I want to use to just say, this is for my theory. Toby Fox said this, and this is part of my theory. This is how Toby Fox views creating a game and views the artistic process. And it's a very important kind of mindset for me in particular, because I agree with it wholeheartedly, and it's what I want art to be. So I feel like I'm on the same page as Toby when he says, I want to create something that will resonate with people, that will create this spark of something deep and something that connects us on a very personal level. I tell my story, and that resonates with you, and that creates something special. And I think that that's kind of what this angel might represent. This is not so much a theory anymore. It's kind of just what I think. If I were to create a deltarune for myself, that is what it would be. And that's why when I tweeted about streaming this today, I said it'd be kind of stupid. Because it's not a real theory. It's just how I view art and how I am therefore viewing Deltarune. Because the creator creates something to connect with the player. There's a connection there. because of that. And when the player's heart shines with the creator, if they resonate with each other, if they understand each other through this shared communication, then something special is born. That connection, that shining hope, that shining this human passion that lights up between the three of these. I think that's what the angel could represent. It's kind of a weird way to describe it, especially because it doesn't give any additional context to what it would mean in game. I just think that's what this means from a metatextual perspective. I'm not going to write hope. I'm going to write connection. So I'm not exactly sure what this will mean. If the angel is a concept known as connection, what does that mean in game? I haven't really thought about it much outside of that. And this could just blow my whole theory apart if nothing in the game supports this idea that I have. So that's kind of just what I'm going to be brainstorming from this point onward, or at least for a little while. In the meantime, Napster Bluke's still typing. Let's see what you got. Let's see. So many things to say about Noel and Des. I wonder if Toby will pull a Skies Forever Blue. Is that like one of the songs that he put out? I vaguely remember that, but I don't know for sure. Skies Forever. Yeah, that's a song. I don't remember much of any of that. Should I pull that up? Should I try listening to that? I don't know if that'll get me in trouble anywhere, but probably not, right? I'm not going to be able to have time to fully figure this out and think and talk at the same time about what exactly Skies Forever Blue might mean. Pray this time my heart will shine on through. It seems to be talking about a very similar concept then, especially if this is so video game focused. So yeah, I think that might be what the angel is representing, and I'm just trying to think if I can put those pieces together. If the angel is the shining connection, then what does that mean in universe? I don't know. Because that could just mean that whoa, I'm experiencing this. Wow. That's the angel. What does angel's heaven mean? Heaven supposes an idealized location or state of being. I don't know exactly what the angel's heaven would be aside from just a fun game that is appreciated for what it is. I'm trying to find all my got so many windows open. There we go. I'll listen to it and search for secrets, yeah. And so if the angel's heaven needs to be banished, according to Rouse at the very beginning, and so I'm trying to think, okay, if this angel is what I theorize it to be, what could banishing the angel's heaven mean? Do these characters want to get rid of the player interacting with their world and being connected to it? Possibly. it feels like outside influence from the player through this heart, a very well drawn heart, could be causing them a lot of strife. Maybe the player's existence in this world is what's going to cause it to go to ruin, according to the prophecy. That's an idea. I mean, it's a possibility. We don't really know much more about it. They don't know what the angel looks like, and I know a lot of people. Well, we the player don't know what the angel looks like. I know a lot of people were saying, "Hey, if you play this on like the Switch or some kind of non-matte screen," and they say, "Whoa, that's the angel." I'm gonna type that out now. Angel, and it's just like a black screen. Come on. And then, whoa, you see where your reflection in it. Whoa, that's me. Then that's what the angel is. It's an interesting theory, and I think it's completely bonkers. I'm not exactly sure that's what's intended, especially because the story is so secretive about any of the major plot reveals that the prophecy would give us. I'm going to put music back on. Sorry, this is my first time streaming in like 10 billion years. Man, I really just need to get rid of some of these windows. I don't know where my music one went, so I'm just going to have to pull up a new one. Chill Nintendo music. That's what I go with. There we go. All right. If the player is the angel, and if the angel is going to cause the world to crumble, then what does the knight have to do with any of this? The knight doesn't seem to have much to do with it regardless. I mean, the whole point is to banish the angel's heaven, according to Rouse, right? And the knight is the only thing prophecy says about the knight is that it's going to fight the heroes. That's it. Nothing else. It seems like it's not even going to say it's going to stop them. It's not saying what the knight's intended to do. It's not saying that the heroes must defeat the knight in order to save the world. The knight is kind of almost tangential in just that it is a force with its own, what I assume is its own motivations for doing whatever it's doing. And that is incidentally in the way of the heroes. And so, of course, they're going to need to fight. The prophecy itself, there's nothing definitively saying the knight needs to do this or that. Aside from just fight. I don't know why I'm drawing more switch buttons. Okay. So that kind of falls apart pretty quick. I mean, at the very least, it gets entirely unsubstantiated. What's the point of the angel symbolizing some sort of connection that's formed between a player, a creator, and their creation? Aside from the fact that maybe banishing the angel's heaven is, hey, the angel's heaven is this wonderful experience that Susie in particular is having by making friends for the first time and going through these dark worlds. Susie says in chapter 4, I want to do this forever, when she's fighting Gerson. It's like, hey, this is great. Maybe that's exactly what this angel's heaven is Susie just having fun going through these dark worlds, experiencing these little creations and saying, I'm loving this. I am growing to appreciate myself and Chris and Rouse more and more, and I want it to go on forever. And then banishing the angels heaven could mean Dark World stuff needs to go away. And that's it. It's all going to go away. Susie will no longer have these adventures, will no longer have these connections, and will no longer have the kind of fun life that she wants. Is that possible? Like, is that possibly a good way of seeing this? Possibly. Like, the very final prophecy that Susie smashes in chapter 4 and says, hey, I'm not going to let that happen. Chris isn't going to let it happen. Or I'll say that we're not going to let that happen. You're not going to let that happen, obviously. I have wondered, does it mean these Dark Worlds need to die? Everything in the Dark World needs to die. Because I've been wondering, it's like, right now I'm most convinced that it's Rousey that needs to die. And I think the reason Rousey is so negative and so like, oh, my life doesn't matter, is because he, from whatever point that he started existing, it seems, knew that he was fated to die. It's just like, okay, I'm going to cope with that by saying I'm just a tool. I don't deserve to have feelings. I'm not a real person. And that way, when I die, it's not a tragedy. It's not the worst thing in the world. That seems to fit very well with Rousey's reaction to Susie finding this as well. Like, it's like, he starts crying. He starts saying, I'm happy. You don't need to worry about me. I'm sorry to make this about myself. It still could mean Susie has to die as well. I'm not as convinced on that as I think most of the fan base is, or at least the ones that I've seen. Okay. Who's dying? I'm gonna get this right. Okay. Who's dying? Rousey. Gotta have horns. Rousey. Or Susie. Yeah, very similar silhouettes. Okay. That's Susie. The good Susie. Or Dark Worlds. How do I represent Dark Worlds? I'm just going to make the upside down triangle. Dark World. Who's dying? These are the main three, like, thoughts there. Nobody seems to think Chris is going to die, and that seems fair. I don't see how that would be, like, relevant to the story. Watched a video of someone theorizing that they would both die. Also very possible. I watched through that scene a lot of times to try to figure it out. And the thing is, the context kind of works for both of them. When Susie says, I'm not going to let that happen, Susie says, I'm not going to let that happen first. Then follows it up with Chris, and then follows it up with Rousey. So it's either she's saying, if she's dying, then she's like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. And then, of course, the rest of you aren't either. Or she could be saying, if Rousey is the one dying, I'm not going to let that happen to you. Chris isn't going to let that happen to you. Oh, and by the way, you're also not going to let it happen to you. Quit being stupid. It seems either way, the way she worded it, it's one of those two. And Chris being kind of sandwiched in the middle just kind of accentuates their lack of importance in this conversation. I watched a video of someone saying, through as both what I remember them saying, that Rousey will sacrifice himself. I don't know for sure, like, if there's anything in the actual text about that. I don't think I've seen anything officially saying that. Rousey definitely wants to be left behind and encourages it a lot, which is why I think Rousey is going to be the one to die from this prophecy, or is supposed to die. I know a lot of people say, well, he has no self-esteem. Why would he be so upset about dying? I think the reason he has low self-esteem is because he's upset about dying and is trying to distance himself from these positive attributes of himself in order to cope with it. It's all very possible. But then I started thinking, what if it's just all the Dark World? Because that necessarily includes Rousey. Which could make a lot more sense, especially since Susie's entire self-worth is tied up within the Dark World as well. It's a big tragedy for both of them. And naturally, we the player don't want that to happen either. It'd be a tragedy for every party involved, basically. So I'm not exactly sure what exactly the prophecy saying who's dying, which one it's going to be. If the Angels Heaven argument is to stand, which I'm going to find that again, I swear to God. If the Angels Heaven argument stands, like that the angel is this connection between the creator, the player, and the creation, then that certainly means if the Angels Heaven, this wonderful experience that we've been having with this Dark World, is getting banished, then that means, hey, the Dark World's got to die. That's the only way it's going to happen. And it does seem like as long as these Dark Worlds exist, the situation with their Light World is inherently unstable. Like, we've always got to close the Dark Fountains as soon as possible. We've always got to destroy everything that these guys are creating when it comes to Dark Worlds, including Chris. And the final fountain that would probably need to be closed once this whole night situation and this whole bunker situation is cleared up, whatever that might be, seems to be, hey, let's go back to Castletown. And you know those big doors behind the cauldron? And we'll draw a little cauldron here. This is a castle, by the way. It's really good. There's a door, and on the door it's got angel wings. And behind it is a dark fountain. And so it does seem, at some point, if our goal is to shut up some dark fountains, that seems to be one that we are going to need to go to and finish off. And that's the one that apparently gives life to Rousey. Is the only reason anyone from any Dark World is able to continue existing outside of, or just outside of the fact that their dark fountain was created. It definitely seems to be that if this is closed, everything goes away. Everything is effectively dead, or at least shut off entirely, and perhaps forever from the Light World. So that could be the sacrifice that needs to be made, is this final dark fountain that connects everyone to this. And that could, if my angel theory is correct, that the angel concept is a concept of enjoying or connection via creation. Then that certainly would say that this tragedy, this angel heaven being banished, will simultaneously be a tragedy and also exactly what the Lightners need to do. It's an interesting thought. I'm not exactly sure how on board with it I even am, but especially with Garrison saying everything needs to come to an end to Susie, who wants it to go on forever. Stories do need to come to an end. It feels weird because the Dark Worlds within the text of it aren't just a creation. They have thoughts and feelings. They are living beings. But it's true that the boundary between their world and ours is not ideal. Or the lack of boundary between their world and ours is not ideal. Everything comes crumbling down when these barriers between the monitors, when these games within games, when these barriers come down, that's scary. And we were shown that when this little Chris guy from the video game just walked right out of the screen and started attacking people. Or started attacking Chris and kind of Susie at our command. It's so weird. So I don't know. This is a very interesting situation. It does seem to be connected, and so I'm kind of getting more and more confident in this theory as I go on, that the Angel's Heaven is the connection between the light world and the dark world, so to speak, and the adventures you can have with it, and the connections that you make with other people through the dark world. That's what I'm wondering. I'm not sure how upsetting that would be to Susie. I mean, Susie definitely wouldn't like it if the end of the prophecy said the dark worlds need to be shut off forever. That could mean that everyone in the dark world dies. It could mean that they're all separated. Maybe she just assumes they're going to die and therefore punches it and gets all upset. She definitely wouldn't be happy if it was just a separation between the light world and the dark world forever. She would never get to see all the friends she made, and would lose that one like firm connection with Chris, which is like her only friend that she's made. So this is basically a story about growing up and friendships eventually dying as you get older. I don't think so. I think it's about a story. If this reading of it is correct, I think it's a more story about accepting that a story is over, that it can't continue on forever, and that you need to be able to have a life outside of the story and still be able to appreciate what that story gave you and carry that with you. I think that's kind of like the most mature way to handle stories, especially because like I seem to agree with Toby Fox, so I'm just going to speak for myself, but I value the creation process. I value these stories so goddamn much. And I don't want the message to be, grow up. It's a story. Get over it. Grow up and go out and do an office job for a living. That's absolutely not what the message of the story is going to be. Even if all of these pieces fall into place, the message of the story is going to be stories end. And people in the real life die. Stories in real life come to a close, and it's just like, what do we do from there? How do we pick up the pieces knowing that we can never re-enter this story? We can never continue living this story again. And the best thing we can do is to say, hey, this story influenced me. This story helped me connect with people. Susie could say, I connected with Chris. I made a connection with Chris because of Rouse, because of Lancer, because of all this stuff, and I will carry that with me forever. Maybe even Susie will find a way to always have that dark world with her, but she won't be reliant on it anymore. She will always still be friends with Chris, regardless of whether or not she can access the dark world ever again. And she will always be friends with Rouse and Lancer, even if they can never reach the dark world again either. A true happy ending might still mean, hey, maybe they can still get to the dark world. Who knows? But I think that's ultimately what it means. I don't know. As I say it, it almost kind of tries to come out as a cop out. It's like, oh, the dead never truly leave us there in our hearts forever. But that's kind of just what the point of a story is. And having a story go on forever, I have a huge pet peeve about stories that refuse to die, like Dragon Ball, for example. I appreciate the original run of it. And then Toei and all these executives say, hey, let's continue Dragon Ball. And they make a big blockbuster movie out of it, which everyone loved, called Dragon Ball Evolution. And then they made Dragon Ball GT. Well, they made Dragon Ball GT first. I'm not going to get the order right, whatever. They made Dragon Ball GT. They made Dragon Ball Super. They're making Dragon Ball Super Heroes. They're making Dragon Ball Super Hero, the movie. And it's going to continue it forever with Daima and whatever's next after that and so on. Dragon Ball is never going to be allowed to die now. It is a zombie. And that's unfortunate because it is going on forever, just like Susie would probably like it to. Because it's just like, if Susie was into Dragon Ball, she'd be, at this point in the story, she'd be like, hell yeah, it's going on forever. I never have to leave these people. I never have to let Goku be part of a story that's finished. And I don't like that. It feels like there's no artistic connection at that point anymore. Who's the creator whose heart can shine with mine, you know? What can a creator tell me when the whole point of it existing, Dragon Ball as an example, when the whole point of Dragon Ball existing is to just make money now? Like, yeah, I can have fun with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with a good popcorn munching movie, but it will not shine with mine as a cursed mirror, as Toby would say, so long as there's not a creator who's putting their heart into it. And they can't put their heart into it because the story's over. Toriyama has passed away and is no longer, and there's no longer one creator behind this trying to tell their story. So the angel cannot exist for Dragon Ball anymore. It's been banished. And there's a lot of sadness that comes with that, even if it continues to live on as it does. This is just kind of what my interpretation of it is, based on storytelling. It's a weird one. It's not going to give us any insight into what is coming up in the story, aside from the fact that it seems like the final conflict will just be that the Dark World and the Light World will become permanently separated. Dark World might die as a whole, not sure. And I'm not even sure if it'll be a happy ending that it does do that, or if the true happy ending is that we'll find a way to still maintain that connection while still having the maturity to realize that it doesn't have to be there. It's completely vague as a theory, but at the same time that makes me more confident in it because I don't need to nail down any specifics. Toby can write whatever story he wants, and if he wrote his own story within the parameters that I think it will go through, then I'll still be excited for every twist and turn. So that seems pretty good to me, right? It's still an exciting story, still something that I'll never have any idea of what's coming next for, but that's ultimately my theory. Reminds me of an episode of Adventure Time with the train. I actually have not watched Adventure Time, so I don't know what that has to do with it, but I assume it's going through a very similar thing to what I was talking about, if that's what you're bringing it up. It's called Dungeon Train. Yeah, that whole diatribe I went on about Dragon Ball, just as an example, there's plenty of series and franchises that do that now. But yeah, I just think it's stories should be allowed to die. Stories should be allowed to end. And I think that I'm starting to think that's what Deltarune's kind of about, especially with Gerson saying, hey, Susie, you can't just choose eternity with this. It's not a good idea. Gerson's always the one in the right, and Susie's always the one in the wrong in that dynamic between them. So it definitely seems like a story needs to end, and there's going to be a lot of heartache that can come with that. Okay, I'll check it out. I'll take your word for that. Like the end of Toy Story 3, except it didn't end there. The story didn't pass on. Like, I've never watched Toy Story 4. I might be wrong about it, but it seems like the fact that it's continuing at all is kind of going against what the idea of Toy Story 3 was. But that's just me. That's my old man grumblings about how all the franchises just never die. But Woody refused. That's good. All right. Well, that is my theory about what the angel is. I'm going to stop my recording for this, and I'm going to turn that into a video. I'm going to chill out for a second and drink some water so that my voice doesn't die. I'm not used to talking this long. I've got 2 people chatting. I don't know how many viewers total I have. I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. But if anyone has any thoughts about deltarune theories that have been sparked by my discussion so far, let me know. I can start thinking about what I want to talk about next. Four viewers? Wow. Oh, I think I see someone new in the chat, and I think I recognize that name. Hello, Alitera. Dead Azrael theory. No, I haven't. I'm gonna, you know what? That's a good idea. I'm gonna start talking about that. Oh, I just need to drink a lot of water. Oh man, there we go. Getting up and stretching. All right. Does anyone have any opinions for or against Dead Azrael before I go into my rant? That's what your rant is, me just kind of exploring ideas by myself. That's what this angel thing was. I threw up. Some good thoughts. Good. That definitely helps me figure out, like, what... Maybe Azrael is like a throw up. The Chris carrying Azrael's dust around, that's definitely a big one. So this will be an interesting one. All right. I'm going to get rid of the stuff I've drawn here. Go. And start recording. All right, I'm recording something for a video now, so now I don't need to feel uncomfortable that there's only X number of viewers. I don't care. I'm above it now. Ooh, okay. I have this sort of crack theory, but I call it Skies Forever Blue / Frozen 2 theory. So if any of you have watched Frozen 2, I was thinking about the part where it also travels to Atohalan. I haven't seen Frozen 2, so I have no clue about that one. But I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. Is Azrael dead? Is this little goat boy... I'm just going to try to draw a goat. Wow, look at him. Wow, he's such a little goat. How are his horns supposed to go? Like, I know how the the red-horned Asriel is, but he's a different guy for sure. Asriel. So, Asriel, is he dead? Can we confirm that we can put the X's right over his eyes? I don't know. I've been trying to find information on this for a long time because I have a friend named Kieran who is adamant that Asriel is dead. Confirmed, for sure, 100%. And I've been trying to find, because I haven't gotten their full, like, committed theory and all the supporting evidence from them about why Asriel might be dead, because I haven't found any in-game information that really supports it. Like, we've got the funny little idea that Chris, who is this little bean, is carrying around Asriel's dust in their pocket, or some such. Let's draw a pocket, and that's him. That's the goat boy. Why though? Is there supporting evidence for this aside from just the fact that we see stuff that's dust? Like, it's not evidence that immediately lends itself to a conclusion. It's an idea first, Asriel dead theory, and then you can see piles of dust in the dark world that look like that, and then they go poof when you hit them. And you've got Ralsei with the potential red headband. And that fits the story as well. Where's the red? There we go. And so it's like, okay, if you start from Asriel's dead, there's some ideas there. It's interesting. You could think about it and come to like kind of a conclusion. I talked to Toby Fox and said that Asriel's alive. Good. Okay. Confirmed. All right. We don't need to talk about this anymore. Good old Tobalt Fox. But yeah, nothing. I tried, and there's a text dump of deltarune that I actually combed through for any mention of Asriel. And I tried to find any detail that specifically says anything that alludes to the idea that Asriel is dead. And so, actually, before I go into anything else, I want to just check and see if there's anything chat saying. I was thinking that what if the same thing happened to Des and may have happened to Noel later in the future chapters. Look at chapter 4. He was once a monster, but he came back to the dark world as a darkener. Possibly. Like, again, that's not something that's just like... The only information that points to Asriel directly is Ralsei. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Ralsei is a dead Asriel. It's hard to... There's no definitive evidence that says this implies that Asriel is dead. It's all just like a starting point. Asriel is dead, and therefore he could be Ralsei. But I'm just looking for Ralsei is suddenly acting like he's a dead person that exists in the light world. I'm not seeing that part yet, and so I want to be able to draw the conclusion in reverse. Something that that Ralsei says that implies he is a dead Asriel. You know, does that make sense? That's what I'm personally looking for. So I don't want to start from this Asriel is dead theory. I want to look for evidence and try to find, is there anything that implies that Asriel is dead? Because so far I can't seem to find too much. For a second there, I thought I was really onto something because Chris prays at a bunch of candles. I'm going to draw candles now. Chris prays at the altar where all the candles are. You pray for people. And Chris is like, hey, I'm going to pray now. And the player chooses on whomst the praying is done. And if you choose Azrael, they say it in a very monotone and a voice that's clearly not trying. That's what Susie says. Not even trying to pray for Azrael. It very well could mean that if Azrael is dead, then there would be no need to pray for him, because these candle prayers are presumably for someone's well-being. If Azrael's dead, no need for well-being. But it could also be true that Chris is mad at Azrael for leaving, for taking away this normal life that they are clearly missing in lieu of their parents' divorce. It could be that they're just like, they had a falling out with Azrael, and they don't want to pray for him at that point. It's I don't, there's nothing definitive there yet. And for a second I thought, oh, I'm onto something, because there's also a scene in the same chapter where Susie is in Chris's home, and there's a refrigerator. With photos on it. And when I read the text dump, I saw, oh, Susie's telling Chris, hey, what are you hugging the refrigerator for? Quit hugging it, for refrigerator freak. And I thought that meant, oh, Chris is hugging that photo of Azrael. That's not what's actually happening though. That's only if you're saying, don't show Susie any of these photos, that Chris is trying to cover up the photos, and that looks like they're hugging it. Because I thought, oh, if they love Azrael, if they're so invested in Azrael that they're hugging a fridge containing his picture, man, they must really care. And then if they're praying for Azrael and they don't care about praying for his well-being, then how can you care but not want to pray for their well-being if they're already dead? But that's not the case. My own theory was debunked mere minutes after I started believing Azrael's dead, because they were just trying to hide the photos. There's no information that I've seen so far that says Chris is particularly invested in Azrael at this point in time, at least. Azrael is away. Chris presumably talks to them online. So that could be something. But that just is more evidence against Azrael being dead, if anything. And if Chris isn't talking with them online, that doesn't prove that Chris cares about Azrael that much right now. So there's no connection here that I can find, because that would be the easiest way for me to believe that Azrael is dead. If Chris really cares about Azrael but won't pray for him. But that's not something I've seen yet. So far, people have only brought up Azrael to Chris. And the only thing that Chris really does is, as far as I can tell, to convey what they feel about Azrael, is that Azrael absolutely does not look like Rouse. For some reason, Chris is trying to deny the connection between Rouse and Azrael. I don't know why that is, but it's clearly being... That's the only clear thing I can find. Everyone else is talking to Chris about Azrael. So it's hard to tell if there's any sort of connection there that can be made. All right, I'm going to take a break for a second, read chat, drink some water first. It is kind of strange that Chris wouldn't want to show Susie what Azrael looked like, because that'd raise questions. because they might have pictures of him in the fridge, and there definitely were pictures of him, because if you choose the option to show Susie says, "Hey, why'd you Photoshop Asriel to look like Ralsei?" or vice versa. And then Chris is just vehemently denying that they look anything alike, and is constantly pointing out, this is different, this is different, this is different, according to what Susie retorts with, which is just like, okay, I get it. You can stop pointing out differences. We don't actually hear the dialogue, obviously. So it's hard for me to find any direct evidence saying that Asriel is dead. Most of the information I've heard supporting Asriel is dead, it comes from the Asriel is dead theory, and then finding evidence after the fact, or a connection to, I think, Omori, which I'm not going to go into because I haven't played it. I don't know anything about it. Someday I want to play it, but you never know. Yeah, so I can't really tell if there's like, let's entertain some ideas though, because there's some interesting things that I have noticed, and I do want to try to find a connection for. So let's just kind of go into those for fun. One, we've got a red-horned headband. This is definitely interesting. Like, for as much as I don't think it supports the idea that Asriel is dead, I do think it is very important, especially in connection with Ralsei, because Ralsei does have pinkish reddish horns, and that's definitely something that we need to keep our eyes on, because there's some connection there, right? Presumably. That's what it seems like. Just visual aid. Yeah. So I started wondering for a sec. This might be completely stupid, but it's a fun idea to entertain for at least a brief second, and see if it falls apart, which I haven't really thought enough of. What if this isn't connected to Asriel at all? What would that be then? Chris, as a kid, wanted to be a monster. Why? To fit in with their family and their community, obviously. What is Chris wanting to look like if they are putting on this headband and saying, "Hey, I'm a monster. Look at me." I wonder if Chris would look a little something like a little goat boy with red horns. Is Ralsei Chris's like monster self-insert? Probably not, but that's a fun idea, isn't it? It's Chris's OC. When they wear the headbands, they become this little goat boy named Ralsei, who Chris is like an 8-year-old kid at this time, maybe, and is like, "Oh, I want to be like my big brother Asriel. I'm going to be just like him. Therefore, my name will be a mix-up of his letters, and it will be Ralsei." Chris is a furry. How could you not be a furry? How could you not want to be an animal in a world where 90% of the people around you are animals, and the other 10% are just weird, unidentifiable creatures with eyeballs on them? But it's an interesting thought, because Chris definitely wanted to be a monster. Chris came from a family of goat people and therefore would want to be a goat person. In the dark world, this is where your imagination can come to life, and you can become a character that is an adventuring hero. And Chris with the red headbands could be a little goat boy. It's an interesting thought, because I also started thinking, do you remember in chapter 1 under Azriel's bed. This is a bed. Under Azriel's bed. This is a trophy to show that it's Azriel's and not Chris's. If you look under here, you'll see 2 game controllers. One brand and one knockoff. Which is, you know, kind of always just the big brother, little brother dynamic. And so obviously, Rousey being the big brother would get the brand name controller, and Chris would get the Mad Catz controller. But then we realize, I don't remember exactly where. I can look up the text dump again. In fact, I'm going to do that right now, but I'm going to explain my point before I back it up with proof. Apparently, the one to use the Mad Catz controller, the knockoff controller, was Azriel, which I think is very sweet. It kind of paints more of a picture of Azriel being this kind of like, just not a pushy big brother figure, you know, very encouraging towards their younger sibling. And I shouldn't have tried pulling up Windows. I knew that was going to cause trouble. So yeah, this is a fun little thing here. God, as soon as I can get it. All right, don't worry about that. There we go. So I'm just going to look up real quick. Knockoff. Okay, the computer wallpaper is updating. It's a picture of your brother and you playing video games. Your brother is using the knockoff controller. Like, I don't know. So it's such an interesting picture to tell that it's kind of like this reveal. You think, oh, big brother, little sibling, and the little kid is obviously going to get the knockoff controller, and then it's kind of, I don't know. It's a very subtle reveal later that it was Azriel using the knockoff controller, and there's other stuff. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm going to need to look it up again to really get the full picture again. Man, but it felt like Azriel was kind of just like a nerd, and Azriel was the one who was kind of hyping up Chris as the hero, as the kid who would always, as the important one. I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic that I suddenly like became aware of as I played these later chapters. I'm just gonna be scrolling through. I'm just gonna be just quietly having fun while I look through all this. Took me from school. Remember? Let's see. You could sleep in Azriel's bed. I'll fit you Azriel's old clothes. Here's an interesting one. Depending on if you have the right stuff in your pocket when you're in church and you're looking through your pockets for something fun to do. Susie says, hey, these aren't my clothes. What's in here? Finds a note and says, Dear Caddy, thank you for the honor of this junior dance. Your eyes are like whirlpools of molten cat food, the expensive kind that you have to buy at a pet store. Signed, Azriel. And says, hey, don't act like you weren't laughing too. Look, this was in here too. Peace offering. So Chris is clearly uncomfortable with just like making fun of Azriel for being a huge Dorcas. Ancient chocolate. Must have always been hard being the cooler one, huh? You nodded. Like, that's such an interesting dynamic. That's so... I don't know how to even get this, but it's in there. And just the idea that Chris was kind of the cruel one, is the one who was kind of the hero in this dynamic. That, I don't know, maybe that's a stretch to just assume that, but I imagine if they went to the Dark World, would Chris be considered the hero then? I guess so, right? So maybe Azriel would be Rousey, this support character. it just paints an interesting dynamic of their relationship that Azrael was so supportive of Chris. I'm not exactly sure what to make of that or what conclusions to draw from it. Maybe it hurts my theory that that Rousey is Chris's goat Sona. Was there anything else that supported that? That's Noel talking how Rousey looks like Azrael. What's that, your brother? No, it looks kind of different. I said I get it. You can stop pointing out the differences. Azrael, Rousey, who cares? Vanilla nerd or strawberry nerd, I'll crush both of them. So again, that's just like Azrael was also a nerd, much like Rousey. So maybe my goat son theory isn't true, but it does kind of lend credence to the idea that Rousey is kind of meant to represent Azrael in this support role. So that's an interesting thought just to keep in mind. Like Azrael wasn't this huge important figure in Chris's life, or it wasn't like this commanding figure. Absolutely, you're fighting the Titan right now? Good luck. That was hard for me the first time and not hard the second, because the second time I had the knight. I had beaten the knight and gotten the black shard, which makes Titan easy mode. So the red headband, I do think, is like an indication, like maybe that's got to be what Rousey is, right? The red headband becomes this version of Azrael that supports Chris still. I don't know why Chris is so vehemently denying that they look similar. It feels like if there was Azrael dust on the horns and that poof that makes Rousey. I can see both arguments. Like Chris wouldn't want to compare Rousey to Azrael because it hurts too much to compare them. Like, man, I don't like the idea of this being my dead brother. I just want it to be Rousey. Or it could just be like, hey, no, as proof that Azrael's alive. Hey, my brother's over there. I don't like my brother or something. I don't know. My brother's out to college. This guy's someone different. I don't want to think about how they're similar. This is just Rousey, this guy that's fighting beside me, my support. It could be an argument for that Azrael is away at college and is on the outs with Chris for whatever reason. So it always comes down to those two possibilities. Either Azrael equals in college plus contention. Why am I spelling out such a big word? I'm not even sure if I'm spelling it right. With Chris. Or equals dead. It feels like every piece of evidence supports one of these two. And I'm just saying there's more evidence for this. Because everyone's saying Azrael's in college. Toriel's saying that. Asgore's saying that. Everyone around town is saying that. Like, maybe it's some big conspiracy secret, but why is Asgore still... Why are Asgore and Toriel still saying, oh, he's coming home soon? Wouldn't they know? It's so weird to me. Like, I'd need evidence to show why they wouldn't know. Maybe Chris is the only one in contact because Chris is the only one who's talking to Azrael over the internet, and so Chris is the only point of authority on whether or not Azrael is currently living in doing college. Like, I don't know, that... Oh, you beat the Titan. Congratulations. That felt like so quick because I was only just half paying attention to the chat. You beat him in 10 seconds and posted those two messages back to back. That's my version of it. That's what I see. But yeah, it's all the evidence either supports one or the other, and or rather, all the evidence supports one, and there's no evidence contradicting either of these. That seems to be my main point of contention, is that there's not a single piece of evidence that itself describes Azrael having the potential of being dead. That's kind of what my issue is. Another thought, though, on a similar line then, is the piles of dust. At the very beginning of chapter 1, it was like a big dust pile. It was shaped kind of like this. Oh, look at big dust piles. Yeah, wow. Okay, you got these piles of dust. Now, these are interesting, especially because they made a comeback. It's not just some visual flair that was in chapter 1. These are still somehow, in some way, relevant in chapter 1. Come on. What is going? I just press buttons and sometimes it... Oh yeah, there we go. Chapter 1, chapter 3. So why are these showing back up again? I'm trying to figure that out. My main theory right now is that each lightener that creates a fountain, whether that be Chris or the knight. Here we go. Or Susie. That is not good hair for Susie. Hold on. I'm an artist. I need my art to look amazing. There we go. We've kind of gotten confirmation that all three of these have created fountains. Like, Knight is least confirmed, because it's just like, yeah, they probably made the 1 and 2. They probably made the first one, the card castle one, but we don't know that for sure because we didn't see them make it, and there's not in-game text that that supports it, that explicitly confirms it. But Chris made chapter 3s. Knight presumably made chapter 2s. Knight made chapter 4. And we'll say Susie made chapter 4.5. So okay, hold on. Weird colors. And then there's also 1.5. I want to make sure this is all clear as I make it more confusing. Okay. So Chris made chapter 1, which is Castletown. Has dust piles in it. Knight made chapter 1.5, which is the card castle. Those are distinct, because we go through a big grand door into the next room over, and there are 2 dark fountains, one for Castletown and one for card castle. Made very clear that this one, and this one definitely seems to imply to be made by Chris and Azrael. That's the prevailing theory, at least. And that has dust piles in it. And then we don't know for sure, but it seems like the Knight, like Rousey's talking in the legend, like, oh, a second dark fountain's appeared and that's what's causing problems. So it seems like this one just being there doesn't seem to cause a problem in and of itself. But the Knight presumably created the second one in chapter 1, and that's causing the problems. And that's why I think it's the knight, is because it's causing problems, and that seems to be normal. It creates the one in chapter 2, no real issue there. And then we have chapter 3 explicitly visually created by Chris, and it again has dust piles. Chapter 4, the normal one, is created by the knight, and chapter 4 later on, Susie creates one, but it's weird. It is inverted. It has odd colors to it. Might be some artistic flair because the fact that, I mean, it's weird on its own just because it's creating a second dark fountain in the same place that hasn't been done yet. But when you look at it this way, it's interesting that each one of them has their own kind of distinctiveness to it. The knight's just being distinct in the fact that this is kind of what we're used to. This is our baseline. But Chris's always seems to have dust piles to it. And Susie's, the only one we have, so granted it's not a great sample size, it seems to be a weird color. If that is a pattern that we are meant to deduce there, then that seems like every fountain that Chris would create would be kind of like this desolate wasteland with a bunch of dust in it, which could be very telling of Chris's personality. It's a bit of a stretch, and I don't like going too much into this, but it's on my mind, so I want to entertain the idea at least a little bit so I can figure out if I want to fully shoot it down or not. Chris could be haunted by something that has to do with dust. I mean, if everything they create has piles and piles of dust and desolate wasteland around it, then it's very possible that Chris is dealing with something that's related explicitly to dust. And there's always this kind of like background thought of, what if something terrible happened here? Des has disappeared. Azrael is not showing up for whatever reason. Either Azrael's dead, Azrael's off to college and is not coming back for whatever reason. I don't know. I kind of think Azrael's not coming back because Azrael's responsible for something, is running away from something. Also a possible idea. But it always feels like there's something bad that happened. And if something bad happened, it could be someone's death. If Chris is going through something, they go through like a therapy session in the egg room of chapter 4. Is this something that they've been traumatized by? Have they been traumatized by something involving monster dust, meaning someone died? Maybe. I don't know. That it's an interesting connection to make. And it feels so flimsy, and yet it feels like exactly the type of thing that this story could be. And then, of course, Susie being Susie is kind of just like, I don't know, an outsider to this. Chris is clearly working with the knight in some sort of fashion. And so maybe Susie, because Susie's not made a fountain before, maybe because Susie's not creative in that way, we don't, or maybe this is like Susie's colorblind, that's been a theory, is making it made the weird fountain. It makes me think like maybe these fountains are definitely very colored by the person who created them, colored figuratively, not literally, except for Susie's case. That could support the idea that Chris has survived some sort of trauma that has to do with death. And maybe that means Azrael's death. I haven't seen any proof for that. It could very well mean Des's death, because Des seems to be the knight, but the knight also seems to have very death-like imagery. Like the knight is like amorphous amalgam, like the amalgamates from Undertale, and they're kind of like just these half-dead creatures. And the knight seems to be making similar sounds, seems to be dripping and oozing, or that might be crying, I don't know. But their face mask changes form a lot. And most concerningly, they've got kind of just like an exposed rib cage. That's not something a typical standard living creature would have. I'm just going to say it. It might be a bit controversial. I don't know. This feels very pointed to me. Like, it could be just cool design flair, but it feels like design, generally you want to have a purpose with it. And it definitely feels like with this exposed rib cage, this link in it, like their waist is literally like this thick. It feels like wasted away. There's a lot of death imagery, at the very least, associated with the knight. So my thought is, if knight is death is dead, or some sort of like, amalgam. You know how the amalgams weren't exactly dead, but they're messed up and might as well be, kind of thing. It's kind of like that situation at the very least for death. That's my thoughts. I think if anyone's dead, it's death. If anyone's traumatized by someone's dust, or if Chris is traumatized by someone's dust, it's death. If Azriel is running away to college, it's because of Death's death. That's my thought. So I don't know if Azriel's dead. I just know that Azriel is deeply involved in this, and that it definitely seems like there's something that very bad that happened. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Azriel's dead. Like I said, changing out these layers is really hard. Like I said, there's only two like possibilities I can draw from the information given to us. It's that Azriel is dead or Azriel is away at college. Like those seem to be the only two possibilities. Yeah, the knight has antlers. There's a lot of stuff. Like Death is confirmed to have used a wiffle ball bat against Chris. When Chris was tormenting Noelle, and the knight's sword is absolutely a bat before it is kind of put at the right angle to look like a sword. I don't know. So much of it is just connected with Death. It seems like it's almost certain that it's Death, and it might be Carol, but there's not really nearly as much evidence supporting Carol, and there's kind of some stuff that deliberately goes against the idea of Carol being the knight. Carol's definitely like working in the same faction as the knight, at the very least. Yeah, so my thought is maybe the knight is kind of like what Garrison is, except like a dead person that's kind of being reanimated through dark fountains. It doesn't seem to be the exact same one-to-one, unless you talk about the Garrison skeleton moment. That seems kind of close. Just like this failed resurrection of someone dead through a dark fountain. I don't know. That's why I think Garrison's such a big point in this, and Garrison being dead is such a big point in it, is because it's like being used as, hey, this is a possibility. This is something that's scary, and this is something that a bad guy would do deliberately, obviously. And this is something that people would absolutely inherently want, and would do anything to get under some circumstances. It feels like it's kind of setting up the idea that the bad guys, the antagonists, I'll say, want to do this. Want to bring people back from the dead with dark fountains. You just finished chapter 4. Nice. Have I been spoiling you this whole time? I put spoiler in the corner. I hope I haven't been. Another drink of water. So I think that'll be ending it for my Is Azriel Dead video. I'm going to stop recording that. There we go. Man, there's one more idea that I had for a theory about deltarune, but I totally forgot about it. What was it? Azriel, Death, the Night Faction, wanting to bring people back from the dead. Oh, yes, I remember. There we go. Hope that's how you spell it. Man, You never get so insecure about spelling until you have to spell something in front of people. Ugh. All right, so that's the topic, so I don't forget it. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. But yeah. I'll see you in a sec. Okay. I've returned. All right. And back at my drawing board. Nice. Naps to Blue 22. So, you have been hanging around in chat. How How do you think this has been going? This is my first time streaming in a long time, at least solo. I'm on good time zone. Not sure if you're aware of that. But, yeah, this is something I'm still getting used to. Kind of just talking through stuff that I really needed to get out of my head. Like, I could talk about this stuff forever, so it seems like a good opportunity to just talk to myself. I think it's been going good. That's nice to hear. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I'd appreciate any insights. But either way, it's not required. Because I will be talking about one more big thing that's been on my mind about deltarune. And yes, it might be about the time loop theory. Okay. It's clearing up my throat. Yeah. Sans is from a different timeline. I mean, it seems like Sans is from is going to Undertale from Deltarune. It came from Undertale to Deltarune. Something weird going on there. Deltarune might be the explanation for it. Might not be, honestly. He just kind of showed up in both at the very beginning. The only difference is that this Sans in Deltarune seems to be much less existentially sad. Hasn't lost something huge. Seems a lot happier. Have you ever watched Game Theory? Oh, I know of Game Theory. I've seen some Game Theory videos. I definitely don't watch very frequently. I don't think I've seen a video in the past 3-ish years. I know that MatPat died and then started running for president. If the memes are anything to go on. The Sans' Nest Theory. Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's a fun one. Oh man, I need to bring up, maybe I'll do this at some other point. This is me just talking theories for today. But I had very fun little write-ups about what I thought the future of Deltarune was when Chapter 1 had come out not long before. And it was very funny because it was weirdly piggybacking off of the Sans' Nest Theory, even though it was memed on because it was pretty ridiculous, let's face it. I mean, yeah, he definitely seems to be from a different timeline, from a different game, possibly from Deltarune. I mean, it's such like an easy connection to make at this point. I mean, but mostly because it's on the backs of 10 years of theorizing from Undertale, you know? So it's not, I'm not going to want to like downplay anyone who's just like, wait a minute, maybe Sans is from Deltarune and went to Undertale. I'm not going to poo-poo on that and say, oh, you're stupid for just now figuring that out. But, you know, being so absorbed in Undertale and Deltarune for so long, it's just kind of become obvious. It's like the first thing that is, it's the first theory that you really get into when you're a fan of this series, you know? All right. But I think it's time for me to talk about one more weird Deltarune, just kind of not theory, but just thought process. And we'll see how that goes. I'm going to start recording once more. Cycles. Those are interesting, huh? It's like you go forward, and then it's weird, and you like go back, and you kind of start all over again. Huh. Is that something that has to do with deltarune? Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of just what I want to talk about. So, I am going to be approaching this from a very interesting perspective that not many theorists would go into, but I like how my shorthand for Chris has become a Lego person, but that's just kind of how I decided to do with that, I guess. So, we've got our main cast of characters. Chris, Susie, there we go. Rouse, who's also very similar shaped to Susie. There we go. It was all set up. Chris, Sus, Rouse, and for fun, just a little bit of fun, I'm going to toss in this is not a good drawing. Hold on. I just want to get the idea across. It doesn't need to look good. But the idea is not there yet. What does she look like? Okay, what's Carol look like? Hold on. Carol Holiday Deltarune. Carol Deltarune. Got the heavy eyelids. And she's like, eh. And then she's like, eh. She's always saying, eh. Perfect. So these are the main four, right? These are our four main characters. This is an interesting way to kind of breach this topic. But what do all four of these characters want? They're interestingly connected. What are all four of these characters' problems that they want to solve? Well, let's start with the easiest one, which I think is Susie. Because Susie's very straightforward and says what she wants. In the fight with Garrison, she says, when Garrison asks, how would you want this story to end? She says, I don't want it to end. I want this to go on forever. Good stuff forever. Forever. Man, that's great. What does Chris want? You know what? Let's save Chris for later. What does Rouse want? Rouse, we can define Rouse by what he doesn't want. He doesn't want fated destiny bad. Rouse is a tragic figure who is defined by his relationship to the prophecy, at least as of chapter 4. It seems like everything that Rouse is determined by how he reacts to this. And this is just my interpretation. I think a lot of people disagree with me in that Rouse is self-deprecating, therefore Rouse wouldn't be upset if the prophecy said he would have to die, stuff like that. I think it's the opposite. I think because Rouse knows that he's going to die, he is coping by saying he doesn't have a life worth living in the first place, and therefore it's not a big tragedy if he does die, if he never gets to live a proper life. He's just a tool, and therefore it's not sad if he dies. And he's trying not to have feelings about it. He's actively repressing all of his feelings about this. He's smiling all the time as a coping mechanism. So he's defined by fate, this predestined future. And let's move on to Chris then. Chris is a bit harder to tell, but Chris is struggling with a very human kind of home life where Big Brother has gone away to college and parents are divorced. What kind of struggles Chris is going with the bunker stuff, with potentially working with Carol for something, potentially working with the knife for something. We don't know all the details to that, but what we know of Chris's personality and motivations, it definitely seems like Chris is unhappy with change in their lives. They want to probably, if I had to guess, based on the information we have about Chris's personal struggles right now, not the plot struggles, but the personal struggles, that is my guess, is that they do not like that their home life is wrecked and they want to go back to normal. This is evidenced by they are kind of dismissive of Asgore, their dad. I think they kind of blame Asgore for breaking their family apart. Not 100% sure on that. That's kind of iffy. Chris definitely likes their mom. And they also got very uncomfortable when Toriel, at the end of chapter 4, got drunk and was partying with another man who was not her previous husband and Chris's father. Very uncomfortable situation for Chris. And I think it's because Chris, it's kind of this defining moment of, hey, things aren't going back if Toriel gets together with this weird skeleton man. It's kind of the definition of she's moving on. And that's very upsetting. And that she has a life where she's not this godlike figure, because children tend to see their parents as godlike and beyond human when they're very young, and then realize they're human, and that's kind of an unsettling realization that everyone deals with in their life. But Chris is realizing that when Toriel gets drunk, not that it's necessarily a bad thing that she does that, it's just very uncomfortable for Chris. So it feels like all of this just kind of points to the idea, and with Asriel gone away to college as well now, their life has just been thrown upside down. It feels like they want to go back to a sense of normalcy. That's kind of the idea that I'm getting. I might be wrong there, but this is kind of just what my thoughts are on the situation. Now, the reason I bring Carol into this is because Carol's kind of the most visible antagonist so far. We know that Carol's involved probably in some way with the bunker stuff, probably involved with the knight stuff. In fact, I'm just going to draw in a little knight here, just so we have like, hey, Carol or knight or whatever. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Antagonist group. Weird plot driven, gets things going group. What do they want? Again, lots of speculation, but my thought was coming to, if the Dark World is able to bring people back to life, and that was such a big point in the lore-heavy Chapter 4, bring someone to life. That seems to be the major goals of all the characters. This is just a guess for Carol. It really is, but it just seems like that might be the case based on the way the story's structured. This is the lore of the world. This is what these Dark Fountains can do. We've seen proof of it, and the knight has clear death imagery around them. That, at the very least, we can be certain of, because they've got the exposed ribcage. They're pitch black. They are melty and goopy in some weird ways, and they're just outright terrifying. They're a black specter, and they're skinny and decrepit in a way. And so there's some kind of death imagery there. And so that's why I kind of think it's related to death. It's about bringing someone back from the death. That kind of seems to be the angle we're getting at. Ugh. Quick break for water. Whew. Ugh. All right. So, what do all of these now have in common? If these are all the circumstance, which I believe them to be, well, it's not exactly clear, and I can't even think of a simple way to describe this. But Chris wants things to go back. Susie does not want things to go forward. Rouse is on a set path going forward and doesn't like it. And Carol and the Knight want a death to be reversed. So essentially, all of them are kind of afraid of the future. And all of them want to either stay stuck in time, which Frozen in Time was a specific quote about Carol and the rest of the holidays, and Noel and all that good stuff. Also, yeah, like Rudy Holiday is dying, so that also supports that idea. It's just like, okay, there's got to be some connective theme here then, right? I mean, if this is a factor for all of them, that seems to be what a big major overarching theme of Deltarune would be. Like, especially like a fated destiny, something in the past is informing what will happen in the future, and the future informs the past. Therefore, it's a cycle. It's forward and back, continuous. And so I started thinking about, like, people are saying there's some sort of time loop theory, and I honestly have no idea where it comes from. I haven't looked up anything on this. This is all me starting from scratch. The only thing I know is that there is a time loop theory, and I came to this independently and thought, you know what? Maybe they're onto something, specifically because of my own evidence that I came up with that probably nobody else thought of, or if anyone else thought of it, they probably haven't applied it in this way. I don't know. This is very interesting thematic relevance, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of it because I haven't thought of any particular details from the game that are saying, hey, this is going to be a time loop, look out for that. I think it comes from the angle or something. I assume you mean angel. Does anything specifically stated about the angel say there's going to go back in time or have a time loop? I don't recall any of that. I'm looking at the text dump here. It ain't gel. Angels watching. Banish the angel's heaven. Looks like an angel doll. Try to make one. Waste the whole time making huge wings. Angel being able to reset the timeline? I don't remember anything about that. I mean, there's an angel's heaven that needs to be banished. It's funny that it strangely always comes up in my search results for angel. Let the angel's power light your way. Let's pray to the angel will smile upon her. May the angel watch over you. You are sleeping like a little angel. The angel's watching over all of us. It has like a cool prophecy, like foretold by time and space. I mean, the whole time and space line in general is very sus for time shenanigans. That's always pretty a pretty standout thing. The heroes like have swords and stuff. That's not really getting into anything. Made snow angels. Why does the angel make us cry? What do you call man with one eye? Church angel prophecy encounter. Treasure only experience. Yeah, I'm not seeing much myself. Okay, that's the angel. What I understand it actually looks like. I don't know about that. Prophecy looking at made you feel strange. He did not investigate further. Yeah, I've never seen too much definitive information about the angel. That's why it's so up in the air as to what the angel even is, which I already talked about. Okay. The angel banished will finally meet with its desire. And then, when all hope is lost for the tale, the final tragedy unveils. To save the world, we last all say. Only then will the words be saved. I don't even remember any of this. Where's this from? Angel's guidance. Angel's made a difficult path for him. Angels. Yep, that seems to be about it. Yeah, I really don't know if the angel has anything to do with it, or anything in the text about the angel has anything to do with it. It's really hard to tell where this cycle idea comes from. This is where my cycle idea comes from, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of it. Let's take this to a logical extreme then. If Carol / Knight is an antagonistic force, my thought was, okay, at some point in the story, near the end, the bad guy kind of has to win a little bit, typically, to show what the stakes really are. Because if they just say, hey, I'm going to take over the world's going to be destroyed, whatever, it doesn't really mean much until you actually see, hey, world's getting destroyed, look at this is bad, this is really bad, I don't like looking at what's happening to me when the bad guys are winning, and so now we need to change it. Right now we're about here in the story. So at some point at the end of chapter 6 or beginning of chapter 7 or something, bad guys need to start winning. And what does the bad guys want? Again, I say bad guys a lot. This is antagonists. We don't know how bad they really are. They're probably just misguided. If the tone of the story is anything to indicate it. They want to bring someone back to life. They want to freeze things in place. The holidays got frozen in time. They want to stop this forward progression of decay in their lives, where things are dying, where things are changing. And Susie kind of agrees with that, and Chris kind of agrees with that, and Rouse kind of agrees with that. And so they're all kind of on the same page, except our heroes probably don't want to be on the same page, because Garrison's saying, hey, good stories need to end. Rouse is... dude, you can't just be okay with dying just because of prophecy said so. Or you can't be okay with some sort of tragedy. I don't know for sure if it's Rousey dying. And Chris, let's face it, they're with the antagonist. They're probably not thinking 100% straight on this. They're probably not like the paragon of what the lessons of the story are about. And so we now have Carol, who's definitive antagonist, probably has some sort of lesson we need to learn about something they're doing wrong. And that seems to be, hey, bringing someone back to life, stopping the forward progression of time. This is wrong, and everyone needs to grow to learn that this is wrong. And so, how does the bad guy troop start to win at this point in the story? Hard to say. I think creating a time loop might be that idea, or it could be freezing things in time, but I'm not 100% sure how. I mean, especially if they want to bring someone back to life, freezing things in time isn't going to be enough. So that's just my thought. I don't think they want Rudy to stay in a stasis of always being in the hospital and sickly. They want to send things back. So it's not just enough to stay frozen in time, which they currently are. They want to go back. And so that's kind of what the time loop is I think going to be, is kind of going to be the bad ending that we need to fix. That might be what the roaring is. You're watching you're watching a video about the time loop theory right now. Okay, if you have any information that you get from that, feel free to pass it along. This is just me thinking on my own, though. I'm kind of glad that I'm not influenced too much by the current expected theory. But so what are they going to do to get things sent back in time? Hard to say. We really don't have too much information about how they could just go back in time or undo stuff. But if things in the dark world become indistinct, let's talk about a chair for a moment. Everyone remember this chair? It was all the hot shit back when the Spampton ARG was happening. There's like a towel or something draped over it. That's it. It was a chair. Wow, look at it in all of its glory. And Ralsei revealed at the beginning of chapter 3, hey, this chair, guess what? When it gets dark, it starts to become indistinct. Ooh. Wow, look at that. Whoa. It's turning into something else. It's turning into an andogeny. For some reason. I really don't get why that ended up happening. But yeah, it turned into, whoa. It's andogeny. Wow. So things lose distinction in the dark. And gain a different distinction in the dark world, which is darker than dark. Losing distinction. Coherency. This is a stretch. This is a jump. But if physical things can become indistinct, if concepts such as life and death become indistinct, we got a dead guy coming back to life. That's Garrison. Look at him. Wow. He's having such a good time. Maybe time? Maybe time? This is silly. This is stupid. Does time become indistinct in the dark world? We see no proof of that. I mean, Chris and Susie stay in the dark world in chapter 1 for a long time, and then guess what? Time passes. They're like, hey, we came back out of the dark world. Guess what? Turns out it's night. We missed all of class. We missed all of this and that. There's no evidence supporting that. Then why? Then maybe my theory is just for naught. I don't know. But then where is all this extra time loop information come from? Let's see. Absolutely, we got stuff to say. Saving and loading and erasing memories. Yeah. Rewriting reality. I've also had the stupid theory about mountain that Frisk and Char falls into is also the dark world. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. So saving and loading, that definitely does cause time shenanigans. So that's true. That could be why Chris is being recruited. Let's pull up my little character sheet. Why can't I don't know. For some reason, Clip Studio is not letting me just toggle viewable layers on and off as I choose. It just, one has to go with another for some reason. So Carol recruited Chris, presumably, that's what it seems like, to become the vessel for the heart. Carol likes the hearts, has all those heart-shaped pillows. It's really weird. Carol and Chris are working together. Kind of seems like, and Chris made a promise to this faction, not necessarily Carol directly, but to this faction. Chris, you promised at the end of chapter 4, you promised you'd be part of, you'd contain this heart so that we could do what we want to do. Don't you want to be part of this too? That seems to be what the big idea of it is. So Chris agreed, hey, I'm going to take in this heart, even though I don't like it. I don't like this heart controlling everything about me. It's very clear that Chris doesn't like that. But I'm going to do it. Chris keep putting the heart back in for some reason, to further your goals. The heart definitely seems to be important, and saving and loading seems to be a big factor of that. So it is very possible that the heart has the ability to control time within the confines of a dark world. Some combination of the heart plus dark world can mess with time, I'm thinking. I mean, it seems like a definite possibility, because they can already bring Garrison back to life. So it's not just bringing someone back to life. They need to undo something big, is what I think. And the only way that can be undone is with the heart, is with Chris, is with Carol, is with the knight, following through with this prophecy. Maybe they're not following the prophecy, but they're certainly playing into the hands of the prophecy, even if it's not intentional. It was about how the roaring is already going to happen in Deltarune, and the angel, maybe the player, erases the timeline and hopes for a better ending, creating a time loop. I don't think I recall any direct evidence that could support that. I mean, it's definitely like, again, it's kind of like the Azrael's dead, and then you find things that say, oh, I mean, this supports that it could happen. It's starting with a premise and then going backwards, which I'm not the biggest fan of doing that, but I mean, that's kind of just how a lot of theories start in the first place. So I'm not going to knock it too much. So the angel in the angel's heaven, if it's banished, you need to restart with a new timeline. It's such a weird concept. I can't like ground it with anything, you know. I can't give any definitive evidence as to what the plans for this are, because all we know is that the angel's heaven needs to be banished according to Rouse, and that's like it. That's all we really know about the angel. There's so little to go on. But I mean, maybe. Like, with my previous video that I've recorded now, the angel could be the idea of this connection between a player, the creator, and their creation. And something shining there. If the angel's heaven's banished, then the story's over. And you need to find something new. Find a new story, and therefore, if you're finding a new story, that's a new timeline. Things are starting over again. It's possible. Ah, man. This is all like vague abstracts, though. I can't find any definitive information about this. You know, I'm dredging up from my mind any details I can latch onto this saying, Carol said this. The prophecy said this. I can't seem to think of anything that, aside from just the saving and loading function, which we know is a diegetic thing to some degree. It's not exactly saving and loading in that world, but it is a power to redo things. Yeah. I think that maybe makes sense as to why the heart's there then. That's really the most I can give this, though, is that thematically, everything seems to line up. Everything seems to be about going back or changing the future or never going forward. All of it's kind of the same idea. Let's go back. And that's not a good thing to do. That's about all the information that I can parse from this. And that's why I think that's what the bad guy group is doing. They're finding a way to go back and undo things. And so that's why I think a time loop is going to happen. I can't think of any additional details aside from the heart saving thing, which is a good point. But that seems to be why Chris has agreed to this, as far as I can tell. I think that's a solid thought process. Again, it's one of those theories that doesn't give any indication as to what will happen in the future or any definitive answers as to like who died. Is Des dead? Is Azrael dead? What's in the bunker? Is Gaster part of this? Which I don't 100% think so. I think Gaster's kind of still going to be mostly a secret. Yeah, it's hard to tell. But I do think this is a major theme that is going to play. And I do think that the big cataclysmic event is related to time shenanigans, is to cycle shenanigans. And it's very possible that by going back and recreating the world to be somewhat different, a new world, starting from the beginning, that has a different outcome. What's interesting is that sounds a bit like, you know how like when you played Undertale and then you played Undertale and then you played Deltarune and then they were like, well, this is weird. This is like the same thing except they've lived entirely different lives. It's almost like if you went back really far and then had the events play out just slightly differently, you would end up with Deltarune. Or maybe if you're cycling back, if you're going back to the past to play the shitty games that suck ass, then maybe, which by the way, Angry Video Game Nerd is canonical to Deltarune, so that's a reference to Deltarune. If you want to go back and redo things in a slightly different timeline, does that make Undertale? And maybe our poor old skeleton Sans, oh no, look at him. Maybe he got sent into Deltarune. Oh no. It feels a little kind of simplistic, but I mean, it's definitely possible, right? I mean, it's an interesting thought. I don't know what to make of it. The getting to this point, I've made a number of uncomfortable leaps that I'm not 100% into, but I'm not discrediting either, because I like to go based on theming, and this definitely matches the themes that I have parsed from what we've seen in Deltarune so far. Huh. Maybe there is no real villain in Deltarune, or like the fun values. I mean, you know, this definitely seems like a situation where if there is a villain, it's an antagonist that's misguided, that wants something, like for the good reasons, but it's not gonna end up good. You know, bad. It's gonna end up with a bad outcome. That definitely seems to be the kind of tone that they're going for. It seems very tragic, which means you need to have characters that you can relate to, and feel bad for. And that seems to be kind of the tone that Deltarunes kind of strive for. As for the fun values, that's interesting. It could fun values be considered like going back and changing one slight thing in the world and seeing how the world reacts around it? I don't know. But yeah, I cannot think of I mean, there is a difference between villains and antagonists. Crystal isn't really a villain in my eyes. Carol, you mean? Yeah. Definitely just seems like a very strict mom and not necessarily someone who would just go murdering babies. Yeah, it definitely feels like is kind of going for a more tragic vibe, and tragedies require misguided people rather than misguided and relatable people rather than a mustache twirling villain, which isn't necessarily a bad thing to have, but it just doesn't seem like that's what this is going for. That seems to be what the Titan was. I mean, they were just like, hey, this guy just doesn't have a soul. You can kill it. It's just it's interesting that they make a distinction there. And maybe they're not. But I don't know. Part of me thinks that Toby just wanted an opportunity to, hey, let the pacifist players use the attack function for once. But those are my thoughts on time loops, solely based on theming. It's I don't know what to make of it. Best guess, which is kind of stupid, I'm not even sure if I like it. Deltarune, the fail state, is creating Undertale. That's such a weird idea, and I'm not sure if I like it, but what do you think? I think I'll leave the video there. Alright, I stopped recording on that one. Oh man. Alright, I'm grabbing one more drink of water. I think I'm going to be winding down here in a bit. Woo! Oh man. Oh man. Alright. That's about all the concept I wanted to talk about today. For anyone who's here, the 2-ish, 3-ish, somewhere around there, people, I do appreciate you for stopping by, listening to me rant. I was convinced that I would be ranting to no one. That's why I'm making videos out of these. So if the fact that anyone stopped by is a real treat for me. It's very fun. Made this whole experience a lot more engaging for me, so I appreciate it. And Napstabluke, you have been in my chat for a while. I don't even know if you're someone I know, if you're just someone who's been subscribed to my YouTube channel or what, but it doesn't matter. You've been in the chat and providing me with fun ideas. Do you want me to just doodle you something real quick? This is kind of something I wanted to do once I got a bigger audience, is just be like, hey, toss me ideas. I'll make fun doodles out of them. I kind of want to make a stream channel like that, which I thought that would be very fun. So if you're up for it, you could pitch me something, and I could just make a fun little doodle out of it. And before I wind down here, switch to G pen. Oh. Yeah. Oh, now I've got 2 viewers on Twitch. As soon as I'm winding down, but I'm gonna make one more fun little doodle. So let's surprise you. Okay, let's make something Deltarune related. Let's draw something Deltarunean. What should I draw? Oh man, I want it to be something funny. What's a funny moment in Deltarune? What's something like everyone's been drawing like the bangin' sermon my man thing. So that's been on my mind, but I think that we can go with something slightly different. Funny moment to Deltarune. Man, I'm on the spot now. What would I do? What would I think? What's a funny moment? Funny Family Guy moments. Let's see. Man, my mind is totally going blank. I've been talking all this time about theories and stuff. I can't, and now I can't form a single thought of my own. Well, maybe I'll just draw Garrison fan art or something. You like my art? Oh, thank you. It feels like it's been a long time since I've drawn, so I'm glad to see that you've been enjoying it. Okay. Maybe I could make some like Garrison with a funny haircut, because Susie gives him a haircut, right? So let's got this just like beak nose. I don't think of turtles having like a beak nose, but I guess they kind of do. And he's got just crooked teeth all over the place. They're all weird different shapes too. Wow. This guy's a mess. Get your act together, old man. Man, Garrison's really cool. Such a fun character. Like, he really is like all the like trickster, mentor, wise old man archetypes put together. But I don't know. I guess it's just the fact that like Toby's good at writing these kind of characters. Like this guy is meant to represent all the positives of what Toby thinks about like artistry and creation, and he's got his flaws. He clearly never could communicate with his son, which is tragic, and also just like, yeah, wasn't the best father, but it's hard to be the best father. But he also just seems to have all the right lessons, you know. Whenever he's talking to Susie, he's always telling her something that's clearly intended to be taken as, hey, this is what you should be thinking about the situation. Okay, getting a good Garrison base. Yeah. But yeah, definitely very entertaining. Like his little talk about how prophecies are nice and all, but they're you should try reading between the lines. It's darker there. Like what amazing lines that he's just able to write. Like, my God, how do you do that? How do you make such badass dialogue? Like, I'm making a comic. And I'll be making that on future streams if I continue this, which I'm having fun. I think I will. But it's just like, how do you write such a goofy old man with such aura and hype moments? You know, how do you do that? How do you manage something such a cool thing, and seemingly so effortlessly? Like seemingly, but I'm sure there's a lot of effort that was put into making Garrison as cool as he is. King Boomy from Avatar, yeah, that's a definite good point of comparison. Crazy old man with broken teeth. I don't know exactly what his outfit is. It's kind of like this. It's got a big collar, and then it's kind of hunched over because he's got the whole turtle shell look, and he's got a very defined sleeve. seam here. Oh man, as soon as I get off the head, you notice how rough my art gets. It's very indicative of how much I stop caring after I get off the head. There we go. Oh yeah, and he's got his little beard here, of course. There we go. And then maybe it's like one of these, or it's like kind of got a tie. I really don't know. And then it goes into a vest. I don't really. I mean, it looks like old person fashion, but when I actually sit down and think about it, I really don't know what old person fashion is. He's got like a jacket over a vest over a button-up shirt with a tie. That seems to be what it is, but if put a gun to my head, I really wouldn't know. I mean, that seems pretty good, right? And then he's got this big old turtle shell. There's a moment in the game where he's drawing a picture of the heroes of the fun gang, and there's like an option where, depending on what circumstances, Susie says, "Hey, you forgot something," and she writes in Susie rules. But there's also an option, which I didn't get myself, and I just saw in a Let's Play, where she draws in Garrison, but without the shell. It says you haven't earned that yet. I think he's earned it by this point in the story. After he beats the Titan, I think he deserves a shell, right? He single-handedly one-shot the Titan, according to all the memes. All right, and so as for the actual hairdo, I think I'm gonna give him a nice like boy band, like K-pop middle part. That seems fun. I saw a meme with him with like it looks like an eraser, a pencil eraser, like just like a cylinder hair. I don't know exactly what that's called. I am not up to date on fashion standards, but I thought that was pretty fun. Okay, and then and it really doesn't fit his head either. His head is not meant to have standard human hairs growing out of it. Plus, I'm trying to get better at drawing it hair. It's an interesting balance of how much detail I want to add and how to make each strand look kind of like 3D, which I'm just not good at. It's kind of just an area that I've never really grown to be very good at, which hopefully I can be someday. There. And then the back of the hair would have more shadow to it, so I'll add more lines there. Let's just give him a big old blushy. Oh, I look great! Yuck, yuck, yuck. And then I'll just add in some color too. I'm just hanging out, having a good old time. I'm not going to be precious about it. And I think this will kind of just be the end of my first real solo stream, as a kind of thing I want to do. Kind of thinking of just streaming whenever I can for now, and setting up some kind of schedule later. Once if there is ever a point where people are clamoring to see me, I'm certain there will be. I mean, who wouldn't want to see more pictures like this, you know? Justin Bieber haircut, yeah. I mean, this is the kind of like pretty boy, glamorous haircut. So just kind of like Trunks. Got the pinkish hair. There we go. And then just toss in a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah. I'm sure at some point I'll be talking about One Piece. I mean, and most people subscribe to this channel have seen my One Piece videos. So that seems to be I mean, that's something I could talk infinitely about, so that's probably eventually going to be part of things. But pretty much just be anything that interests me. I'm trying to kind of broaden my horizons a little bit as far as what kind of media I partake in. I've been thinking of other games. What was the game that was recommended to me recently that I was like, probably like that? Like Rose, I think what's it called? Because I was thinking like, oh, there's a game called Journey, and it's getting kind of like a spiritual successor, according to a recent Steam thing, or a PlayStation thing. And so I was like, oh man, this looks great. And it's like by the same developers as Journey. And so then I said, oh, well, maybe I'll try Journey. But they're like, no, you need to play Rose first. So maybe I'll try that out as well. Go. So, based on my interest of One Piece slash deltarune, I don't know if there's any cross recommendation that's really apparent there, but there is. Let me know. And then we'll gel. All right. And then we have the white undershirt. We have kind of orange vest. I don't really see a tie there, but I'll make that like a dark color. Why not? And then like this deep reddish brown seems to be something like that. Yeah. Here we go. All right. Yeah. Kirsten's a fun little character. What's Cheek blush a little more apparent. There we go. And give him a bit of shadow too. I'm just having fun at this point. Okay. There we go. And chapter 5 will be out in a year to a year and a half, it sounds like, which is to be expected. Toby Fox intended to release 3 through 5 altogether. It seemed like that kind of was meant to be a big package, and then maybe delays, most likely wanting to be an exclusive on the Switch, seemed to have affected that a bit, and that's why it's coming out so much sooner than any other release, and with a definitive window as well. That's unusual, at least for Tobalt. There we go. But yeah, this stream was really fun. I did enjoy being able to talk to myself for a while, and have people who are wanting to listen. So, hope you enjoyed this little picture of Garrison I drew, and I think I might end up calling it there. And Napstabluke, or if anyone else lurking has any last thoughts, let me know. Let me just get a quick drink of water, and then that'll probably be about it. Where's my water go? I love it, thank you. Just a funny aside, Napstabluke. What kind of name is that? For the character of a ghost in a game, it seems out of nowhere. I created a little comic when I was in high school. It was just a whole bunch of made up stuff. At one point, the comic itself was called the Harryopulate, and it means nothing. It's just a word that's needlessly complex. And eventually, there's this little Pac-Man ghost that became part of the team as a pet. In this little stream of conscious narrative, and I think it was just this, and then it was kind of just that one meme face was what he started with. He kind of grew more of a personality later. Again, this was high school. Don't judge me too much for it. And I called him Nobhanen. Nobhanen. And that name just stuck in my head. It's a ridiculous name. It has no basis. The human mind remembers things by forming connections to other pieces of information already stored in it. And how this stuck in my head, I have no idea, because it's not related to any word in the human language. And it's funny that this thing I made in high school reminds me so much of Napstabluke, which is a stupid little name for a little ghost guy. What are the odds, you know? And I never really thought about it that way until very recently. Man. It's I don't know, just the way the mind works sometimes, and it's a funny coincidence. I'm not going to take credit and say I've got the genius mind similar to the Tobalt Fox of our generation, but it's funny that a piece of my childhood is very similar to someone else who created at a young age, because Toby was 20 when he made Undertale. It's very young. But that's something I appreciate there, looking back on it. Maybe I'll bring Nobhanen back and people will claim it's a Napstabluke ripoff. Alright, I think I'm going to end it there. I'm new to the streaming stuff. At some point, I'll learn how to raid other people. Actually, let me see if can I figure that out real quick. Edit stream info, clip that. Raid channel. Who do I raid? I don't know. Well, we've got a friend of mine who's speed running. Anyone who really knows me probably knows that I'm friends with Kieran Your Moonstone. So if anyone's left over, you're getting sent over to them. At least on Twitch. But I really appreciate everyone stopping by. I really do. I'll try to do this a bit more. I won't have too much time, but maybe like if circumstances work out, maybe like once a week. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's all up in the air. Keep your noses sniffing out for any updates. Thank you very much for stopping by.